Welcome to All Things Financial with Jack Driscoll. Each week, Jack takes on all things you thought were hard to understand about your finances and makes it fun, easy, but most of all interesting. From insurance to the best way to save your money and squeeze the most out of the dollars you put aside for your rainy day. And now, you have a friend in the money business. Here's your host, Jack Driscoll.
Welcome back again, everyone, to another edition of All Things Financial. What I wanted to talk about today are some things that are happening in the news that are actually very disconcerting. And it's dealing with this identity theft and Equifax and all our information being more and more compromised. So, you know, it used to be we'd talk with people that would say, I want to protect myself, so I don't do anything online. We don't do emails. We don't go online. I go into the bank directly. I do everything directly with the loan companies. I won't, email forms or, like I say, use the internet or anything. You know what, folks? That's not going to be enough. I will say it helps, but the world is such that that's not going to protect us. Because while we choose individually, if that's your choice, to not be online and not be searching the internet and doing online searches, not on Facebook and not putting your information in, opening up accounts and sharing your social security numbers and protecting all that information, yes, that can help and does help. Because the fewer sources that information's available to, obviously, your risk factors reduced. But as we just learned from Equifax, and we learned before from Target and some of these other, a lot of them, PNC, a lot of the big companies, including the government, being hacked, who have our information. Just because we give information to them on paper doesn't mean it stays on paper, folks. Those companies, right after we leave the office, type that in and punch that into the computers and it's online. We're in their database, and their databases are vulnerable. We just learned from Equifax how vulnerable, and I think we still haven't found how really vulnerable they are. So we have situations that we are exposed to through no actions of our own. It's through actions of all the companies that we deal with. And for you companies listening to the show, this is becoming and will continue to become a serious financial risk for you. I deal with a lot of business owners. We deal with a lot of insurance, and I do a lot of financial planning for business owners. On the insurance side for businesses, you are at risk to protect your customers' information. And in fact, your vendor's information. If anyone's information becomes compromised and it's traced back to, in any way, shape, or form, even in some small part, to your hand in that transaction, you will be liable most likely for not protecting or not properly protecting their proprietary and personal information. Those lawsuits can be class actions, and those lawsuits can be huge. I just read last week, venture capitalists and private investment companies, and many of you might already know this, are funding class action lawsuits. They're funding people to sue class action lawsuits for investment purposes to share in potential gains. It's an investment opportunity for them. So you'll see solicitations for making class action lawsuits. But hey, you business owners and companies, don't think this can't happen to you. First off, we used to think, well, small businesses might be more vulnerable because they don't have the resources to protect or provide anywhere near the protections and level of protections that these large multinational corporations would have. Well, boy, what a fallacy that is. We've just learned how false that is. This Equifax breach has exposed, as many of you know by now, Social Security numbers, driver's license numbers, dates of birth, and addresses. Not only that, but sources of income, all kinds of information that we are an open book. It's easy for the hackers, whether it's other countries or whether it's an individual in Istanbul, to access, not only access our information, but empowers them to become us, a separate identity. The reason I bring this up in the financial planning show is, when I say all things financial, I mean all things financial. And that area of being exposed through the back door, of them being able to peek into and become us in all our financial transactions, allows then someone other than us to open up loans on our behalf, charge cards on our behalf, buy merchandise on our behalf, file tax returns on our behalf. I bring up those issues because all of those just happened to my own individual experiences to someone within the last 2 to 3 months, people that I actually know. That's scary. And that was before the Equifax breach. None of this is as a result of the Equifax breach. That's next to come. That one is so huge. I could tell you stories that you wouldn't believe. People are hacking identities. We have an ability to protect ourselves only in a very small way. Number one, we try to protect our information. Number two, we don't share our Social Security numbers. We don't share our medical information. Why do you think HIPAA laws are so robust right now and so stringent? It's very difficult to call anywhere and get information on somebody else's account if you're calling and your caregiver for your 90-year-old mother. It's very difficult for you to call and talk to Comcast on their behalf, right? Well, that's because these companies are trying desperately to protect the personal information of their customers. So while you see it as an inconvenience, you should applaud them for making it so hard for you to document and justify yourself as an authorized party that's enabling them to be able to talk on that person's behalf. It's because of all this identity theft and identity fraud. So I want to start with what can you do? Number one is just simply common sense. And I'll get back to that in a minute, the steps you could take. Number two, there are insurance coverages on your insurance policies that are sometimes available for purchase that can help you pay the loss due to identity theft and a separate risk, identity fraud. So to you individuals and families, I'm not talking to you businesses yet, you could buy coverages on your homeowners. It's sometimes called identity theft. It's sometimes called identity fraud. It's sometimes called cyber liability. You need to look into this, like yesterday. If you pull out your policies, last week I talked about pulling out the policies for what you're covered for on floods and things like that, natural disasters, and even other areas that you don't know to look for. This week, I'm suggesting strongly that we look at this identity, what identity theft and fraud coverage is available on the policy. And I'm just going to be very simple and say buy the maximum, just buy it. Don't think twice, just go buy it. Because you don't know what can happen to you, and by the time it does, if it does, and I hope it never does, it's too late for you to add a coverage for something that you just got advance notice on. How do you get advance notice you've even been hacked? You know how it happens sometimes? You go for a car loan and get denied. You say, what? I'm denied? Yes, you're denied. Why? Low credit score. What do you mean low credit score? I have a wonderful credit score. Oh, really? When's the last time you pulled your credit report? Your credit score is 480 or 550. You say that is not possible. It was 750 when I got my card last time. There's no way. I pay all my bills on time and have very few loans. Hey, lady, or hey, mister, you better go check into this. So you go check into it, and you get all your reports, and you find out, oh my goodness, I have cards that were opened up and defaulted for stores I never heard of in states I've never been. And therein lies the story, and there's the beginning. So your first thing is the common sense, and I'll get back to that in a minute. But the second thing, again, back to the homeowner's insurance. Buy the maximum coverage. Why? It used to be if we found out someone got a hold of our credit card, we'd call and just cancel the card. The credit card would be liable and eat it. You know, you'd normally think, oh, they'll waive those charges. Hey, you know what that means? It used to be an isolated circumstance, not a thriving industry of hacking, a very profitable and lucrative business of selling our information as it is today. It used to be something that credit cards could just build in to those high fees they charge us. They build that risk in, and if you called the credit card company and it wasn't your problem, because it wasn't your problem as a matter of fact, because they would say, we credit the card and we'll remove that charge. That's not what happens today. What happens today is you go onto your credit report and you find out someone else has opened loans on your behalf. You call those credit card companies or you call those auto loans and they say, hey, you're liable. These are yours. Or how about defaults? They bought a car, they got a car loan, they made one payment, they defaulted on all those loans. They're not going to make those payments. And they used a different address as their address, so you never even knew this was going on until you just got denied for a car loan. You go in there and you see how an ugly report, because you now go to Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion, which are the 3 credit reporting agencies, get a copy of your credit report and find out, oh my goodness, I have a quagmire, a whole litany of things that I need to fix, and a lot of them have defaulted, so I have defaults on my record. What do you do now? Well, that's not calling your credit card and having it removed anymore. That's hiring attorneys, having your credit frozen, get your credit shut down, hiring attorneys to go out and try to rebuild your credit and talk to all those places. That is thousands and thousands and thousands of legal expense dollars. Who's paying that? Your homeowners, if you buy this coverage I talked to you about. It's not perfect coverage, but it's a start. You need to look at all your credit cards, see, do they provide cyber insurance protection? Do they provide it? Can you buy it? When you get car loans, when you go everywhere, you want to, even travel insurance, you want to find out if we're compromised, if something happens. Everywhere now you need to start asking, hey, can I get insurance for cyber? Can I get insurance for cyber? We used to just look at when you rent a car, can I get insurance for the car? You know, now we need to, you know, really ask anytime we take a loan or anytime we take on an obligation, if something happens. And the other thing is, a lot of the businesses aren't covering you well if your information's compromised through them. So this is a huge, huge area that has just impacted all of us because of this Equifax. So number 1 is you go to your homeowners. Number 2, here come the common sense rules. We're not sharing our social security number. We're not sharing our driver's license numbers online. We're not sharing our dates of birth online. So we are still doing it the old-fashioned way, dealing with people, only people that we know, only visiting websites we know, not opening up the randomware and all the different websites or email that we are unaware, that we don't know. We don't answer the phone from phone numbers that we don't recognize. So there are all the common sense rules that we're taught. We have to get very aware of those again. Have to keep them first and forefront on our mind. In other words, protect ourselves. Number 2, now with this Equifax breach, Now we have to go in and we have to freeze our accounts. What do you mean freeze our accounts? Well, I know you might not have heard of this before, but now you're hearing about it a lot probably if you're reading the news, that anytime your credit information is compromised, if you ever found there was an identity fraud or identity breach or identity theft, you typically have the ability through the credit reporting agencies to freeze the account. Now, what that means is you alert the credit agencies, don't allow any credit for opening new accounts to be, to go through. Block those requests, freeze my account. I am disallowing all new accounts. So if anybody's trying to open a charge card, if anybody's trying to get a car loan, if anybody's trying to get a mortgage, open any new accounts, it's disallowed, denied. Now you have to remember that 2 or 3 years from now, when you forget about all of this and your information was not compromised, maybe, as it turns out, and you forget all about this, and you go for a car loan 3 years from now and get denied, which you'll be shocked. And then they'll say, well, I don't know, you have to contact the credit agency. And you ask them which credit agency, because some places only report to one. And you ask them, whichever credit agency it is, you call them, why was I denied? They say, well, your credit's frozen. And you, what do you mean my account's frozen? Well, I don't know, your credit got frozen somehow. And then it occurs to you and the light bulb go, oh yeah, I forgot about that. I froze that three years ago or whatever because of that Equifax breach. Well, you forgot to unfreeze your account. And that takes some time because they're not going to trust just anybody unfreezing the account. So it takes some time. So you have to remember, if you freeze the account, it's a little bit of a cumbersome process. And to unfreeze the account, which obviously you'll need to do at some point, that also is a little bit of a cumbersome process. So just remember that one. So those are some common sense areas. Another is get a copy of your credit report every year. Make it a practice, like you change the furnaces on your filters on your furnace at home, like you change the batteries in your smoke detectors. You need to routinely, at least once a year, get a copy of your credit report, not just from one of the agencies, but from all 3 of the agencies. That's because some of the credit reporting cards or loan companies or employments, whoever it is that's doing the credit searches and credit reporting, some only use one of the services. They might only report to TransUnion, and here you have an Experian credit report that you just got. Experian looks wonderful. Here TransUnion has 2 defaults on it from cards or loans that defaulted that you didn't report to Experian or Equifax. So you need to get all 3 once a year. That's an easy way to hopefully uncover early problems without it getting horrible. Remember, what a lot of these hackers do is they sell your information, not only to one person, they might sell it to 50 people. They'll sell Social Security numbers and dates of birth, or especially Social Security numbers on infants. So I know it sounds ridiculous, but you need to pull your infant's credit report. You'll say, that's ridiculous. Okay, maybe it is. But I'm telling you, there are cases where juveniles have been compromised and their credit's already ruined, and they're not even 14 yet. Because someone got a hold of the social and is misrepresenting that social as a 55-year-old individual maybe, and getting car loans and home mortgages and ruined the credit on your kids. You think it's far-fetched? Go Google it. Another one, you've got a 90-year-old mother you're taking care of. You don't run credit on them anymore. They haven't done anything on credit or new cars or anything for 10 years. You need to rerun those credits and protect their credit too. So it's bigger than you think, it's worse than you think. You buy the insurance, and then you take the common sense efforts, you run the credit reports every year, you freeze the accounts, now especially with the Equifax issue, you pay particular attention, and then you consider some of these agencies like LifeLock. Life Alert's the one that if you fall at home, they alert someone, and that's equally as important when I talk about the seniors or somebody that lives alone. But LifeLock or someone like that is some of these different agencies that will automatically notify you if someone tries to open your account, will sometimes on their enhanced programs run along with that subscription, and that is a paid service, subscription of its credit monitoring service. And they'll typically, on their more expensive ones, provide you for a credit report at no additional cost from each of the 3 credit agencies once a year. Now, there's another way to get your credit report without having to pay for it, and that's anytime you are denied or declined for credit, if you get a notice from them and share that notice with whoever they reported to, anytime you're denied credit, you're entitled to a free credit report from that agency if you are denied credit. So take advantage of that too if that happens, to get a copy of the free credit report to find out, wait a minute, why? What is it that you're seeing on there? Why you're denying me? So those are some of the common sense areas. Now for you business owners, you have a worse problem and a worse, much higher level of risk. First off, you've got point of sale software, which is your cash register system, as we used to call it. But now it's point of sale software. We go through the grocery store. We go through any retailer, even online purchases. That's point of sale software that processes those payments, usually directly from our credit card. Well, that point of sale software has changed, and the point of sale software systems are now requiring, in many cases, the businesses and vendors to now be liable instead of the credit card companies should that information be compromised. And in fact, this chip-related software, I am told, pushes more of the onus and responsibility onto the individual retailer being liable for claims for these compromised issues of personal information and socials, and the credit cards were hacked, for the credit cards trying to relieve themselves of this liability and put more responsibility on the retailers. So all of you businesses that were forced to convert over to this chip-based system, I am told in some cases that chip-based system is actually being forced on you because the credit cards are forcing it in order to transfer more of the risk and liability of hacks and credit card fraud onto you, the retailer, and off of their backs, the credit card vendors. You need to read your contracts, see if what I'm talking about is true. And then you need to make a call. You need to pull those insurance policies that you have for your business. And you need to contact us and have us dissect those policies to see what type coverages you have in place to pay those claims should you become liable. Maybe even through no fault of your own, but liable nonetheless. So that if it's deemed that through your process, through something you did, a sale that you made, information somehow got intercepted or compromised on your client or clients or vendors, that you have insurance policy coverage to pay the lawsuits, pay the clients, pay their legal expenses to reclaim their lost identity or compromised identity theft or fraud due to your negligence, let's say, as it's told, and your losses. So you need much more robust insurance protection and insurance coverage and transfer of that risk than even the individuals do. Do you have that coverage? Most businesses I talk to do not. If you do, you have the basic throw-on or add-on coverage on the big menu of coverages that a lot of companies put on as an added menu, minuscule coverage, $5,000 or $25,000 cyber coverage or identity fraud or identity theft. but that's it. You need to address this issue far more than that. We're seeing hundreds of thousands of dollars of expenses due to identity theft or fraud risk to your business. We are seeing identity theft and fraud wipe out companies. Just one claim, but it's a class action claim, wiping out the whole company. And it probably wasn't even your fault, but they have to blame someone. And the credit cards have insulated themselves and vaulted themselves in so much to protect themselves that you're the outlier that's going to get caught up in that storm and be liable for those claims because they've insulated themselves so much in their contract language with you and in the actual contracts that they have. You know, when you sign contracts, there's such a thing as contractual liability. So you as a business might not be liable for certain actions, but become liable contractually because there's a small, wee little sentence or paragraph in the contract you signed with either your vendors or your credit card companies, or anybody else for that matter, that says something along the lines of, the retailer agrees to assume the liability of the vendor or the credit card company or the landlord, whether through the fault of the landlord or the credit card company or the vendor. Notwithstanding, the retailer agrees to assume that liability. I bet almost every business owner listening, if you pull all your contracts, your rental agreements, your landlord agreements, your vendor agreements, your credit card agreements, I'll bet your rental car, when you rent a car down in, wherever you go on vacation, or a business conference, I bet you see some language like that you say, wait a minute. I'm signing hold harmlesses and transfer of liability. I don't agree to be liable when I do a trade show, no matter what goes wrong, if someone slips and falls, even if it's not my fault. Oh, yes, you did, because you signed the contract and agreed to assume that liability through contract, and it's called contractual liability, and you can buy insurance for it. But you didn't know that, so you didn't buy insurance for it. You might have some contractual liability coverage. You might not, but you never knew to ask until you're listening to the show or watching this show. That's why I put these things out there. The key to being intelligent and smart is not knowing the right answers. The key to being intelligent and smart is asking the right questions in advance. Knowing the right questions to ask has always been the key to success. It's not the answers that are important. It's, did you know to ask the questions? Did you know the issues to even address? That's what makes you intelligent and smart. A lot of people don't even know. I didn't even know to think about that. I didn't even know to ask about that. This is my life. This is my career. I think about this all day long and all night long, every day of the week. This is the world I live in. It's not your world. I don't know anything about cars. That's the world you might live in. But this is the world I live in. I'm trained to think differently, ask questions that you're not trained to ask. Give us a call. I'll review your packages. I'll review whatever areas you have to see if all the right questions are being asked to help you shore up what you need to be doing in your lives to protect yourselves from risks you're unaware you're even taking. And the Equifax brings it purely to light. All right, folks, we're out of time for another edition of All Things Financial. I can't thank you enough for tuning in and watching the show. I'll be back again next week.